Hi everyone, my name is Michaela Pringle. I done my cultural presentation on death over the Jewish culture. The Jewish people are a small percentage of the world. They're about 14 to 17 million people. They're an ethno-religious group originating from the Israelites and Hebrews of historical Israel and Judah. Jewish ethnicity, nationhood, and religion are strongly interrelated, and life is valued. Jewish religion. Judaism is the ethnic religion of the Jewish people. Judaism is defined as beliefs and practices of Jewish people as given by God and recorded in the Torah and subsequent sacred writings of Judaism. The Torah is the Hebrew Bible. The Torah contains 613 instructions called mitzvahs. They pertain to the Holy Temple and day-to-day Jewish life. Jewish people believe that by definition that God is the single creator and animator of the world. They believe that God is behind everything. He knows the past, present, and future. They believe when his people follow his ways, God rewards them. These rewards can be in this world or in the world to come, which is after death. Prayer. Jewish people regularly pray to God. They gather to pray in front of synagogues. The backbone of the prayer service is a line from the Torah called the Shema. The Shema is said every morning and every night. Also, it's part of preparing the Jewish to pass on to the next world. There is some controversy about death. Jewish people are not permitted to do anything that speed up death, so euthanasia is forbidden. Suicide is forbidden. When somebody commits suicide, it's considered murder, and they're denied important after-death privileges. There is no eulogy at their funeral. They're not buried in the main section of the cemetery. Autopsies are also discouraged because they believe that they're created in the image of God, and when you perform an autopsy, they say that you're desecrating the image of God. Cremation is also forbidden due to the Jewish law. It says that the human body is created in the image of the divine and is not to be vandalized. When a person is nearing death, they'll call all the family members together, and in the last few moments, they'll be making peace and saying their last confessing sins and reciting the Shema. Death in the Jewish culture, death is not considered a tragedy, but part of a normal, natural process. Death, like life, has meaning and is part of God's plan. After a person dies, the eyes of the person are closed, the body is laid on the floor, and candles are laid next to it. From death until burial, they have people called shromen, which are guards to stay with the deceased. During this time, it's a tradition to recite psalms. They have a strong belief in the afterlife, which they call the world to come, which is where those who have lived a good life will be rewarded and the evil will be punished. Shevra Kaddish is a Jewish burial society, usually consisting of volunteers who prepare the deceased for proper Jewish burial. They're usually associated with local synagogues. Preparing the body. And so there are 3 major steps to preparing the body for burial. There's washing, ritual purification, and dressing. During this time, prayers and readings from the Torah, including Psalms, Song of Songs, Isaiah, Ezekiel, and Zechariah, are recited. And so there are some steps to preparing the body. After the person passes, the body is covered with a sheet. And so the first step is to uncover the body from underneath the sheet. And then the body is washed carefully. Jewelry is removed. If a beard is present, it's to not be shaved. Then the body is purified with water. The body is dried. And then the body is dressed in traditional burial clothing. A sash is wrapped around the clothing and tied in the form of a Hebrew letter Shin, representing one of the names of God. The casket is prepared by removing any lining or embellishments. A sheet is laid into the casket. If the deceased wore a prayer shawl during their life, then a prayer shawl is placed in the casket with them. And the corner of the prayer shawl is removed to signify that it will no longer be used in prayer. After the casket's prepared, the body's laid in the casket and wrapped in the prayer shawl and sheet. And then the casket is closed. And the caskets are pretty simple. They're made of wood. They like to avoid metals because they believe in the natural effects of decomposition to return from dust to dust. There is no viewing of the body and no open casket at a funeral. In Israel, they don't use caskets at all, with the exception of military and state funerals. In Israel, they wrap the body in a tallit and is placed directly in the earth. And the funeral service is usually at a burial ground. In the United States and Canada, the funeral is at a funeral home. The funeral ceremony is brief. During the ceremony, there's the reciting of psalms, the eulogy. Sometimes there are no eulogies depending on the days, because during certain Jewish holidays and they don't have eulogies. And then there's a closing prayer. Jewish culture also participates in the tradition of Kariah, which is where the mourners traditionally tear an outer garment before the funeral. This signifies that a piece of them is torn away. Burial is considered to be allowed to have the body decompose naturally, and so embalming is forbidden. Burial is done a short interval of time after death. There's no display of the body. Flowers are not traditional, but seen at heroes' funerals. After burial, close relatives prepare meals of condolence, which is traditionally consist of eggs, a symbol of life, and bread. Mourning. The first stage of mourning is known as Anut. It lasts until the burial is over. In this stage, the person is considered to be in total and complete shock. They're known as an immediate mourner. The next stage of mourning is called Avelut, and it's after Anut, and it means that they are a prolonged mourner. Shiva is a traditional week long of mourning. It's observed by parents, children, and siblings of the deceased. Arranging prayer services, preparing meals, and providing other services for the mourners is common during this time. And then there's Shaloshim, which is a 30-day period of mourning after the burial. During this time, they don't attend parties or celebrations. Life gradually returns to normal. And then there's Shanir Ashar Kadesh, which is a year-long of mourning, and is usually happens when an individual loses a parent. About a year after the individual dies, the Jewish culture has what they call an unveiling of the tombstone. They keep the tombstone covered until a year, and then at the year point they unveil the tombstone. Visiting of the graveside. When you're visiting a Jewish grave, it's custom to place a small stone on the grave instead of flowers. I did learn a lot during this project, and I thank you guys for your time, and I hope you enjoy my presentation. Thank you.